Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range. Fuck yeah, you are. And you are an uncle to my kid. We've got history, bro.
Mate, all right, doing what?
I know, dude. It's crazy. I mean, I've said this time and time again. I feel the craziest connection to you like I don't have with anyone else. I don't know anyone else the way I know you. And that sounds weird.
No, well, I mean, it might sound weird to someone else, but I get it, man. That, like, trying to describe that kind of upbringing that we had, like, it's one of those things where you try and paint a picture for someone, but it's so hard to get across unless you've come out of that situation. So when you talk to someone that was really in the same situation, and like, especially when our mothers were really, they were pretty similar in a lot of ways, like in that, just that overtly really into that hardcore spiritual side of Christianity. And so using it as an emotional crutch and how that affects the kids that have, oh man, it's crazy.
But I mean, let's talk about it more, but like, they're intense humans, and as I get older, like I think I now understand how intense they really were back when they were our age.
Yeah.
And like if I met that person now at my age, like I think I'd either be like I'd be super impressed by their intensity.
That's an interesting
I don't know. What do you think?
That's an interesting idea, actually. You always think about it like you go from the child that's got just the child's perspective, and you're sort of looking at this parent of like, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that. This sort of, and you got a lot of anger and all that kind of stuff. And then you grow up and you get to the point where you suddenly see them, the penny drops and they're just a normal human being, and you analyze them, and then you analyze all your reactions to them growing up. But I've never actually thought how I would be if my mother walked into a room same age as me, how I would react to who she is in that room. That's a really interesting way to think about it. I reckon I would be pretty freaked out, to be honest. Like, I mean, she freaked a lot of people out when she walked into a room, and with her beliefs and her, I mean, she was so outgoing with it all. Far out.
But bold enough to stand up and back it up.
Yeah,
like, I respect that.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of respect there. There's definitely a lot of respect there for like just sticking to guns. It always is for people that have such a, they're just so they've got such a conviction with their own beliefs that they'll stand by it no matter what. No one can shake their ground. It can be scary, and it can freak people out, and it can make people want to walk out of a room, but you've got to respect it.
100%. Yeah. I don't know about you, but my mother, she's 70 today. It's a special day for me.
Yeah, right.
And I'm actually really looking at her as in different eyes these days. Like I now see a woman who's lived not a whole life, but a majority of her life on a spiritual path. It might not be the spiritual path that resonates with me, but now I see her as a bit of a spiritual guru. She's very spiritual. She doesn't go to church, but, she believes in higher power and spirits, and she's in tune, and that's how she lives her life, guided by a higher power of some type of her understanding.
Yeah, well, is she still attributing all that to Christianity and Jesus Christ, or where is she?
She very rarely talks about Christianity, but her foundation is there. But you don't often hear her talk about JC or the Bible. I don't even know if she reads the Bible. She doesn't go to church. But what I have noticed is now over the course of my life, watching her live that path, is a woman who has overcome extreme adversity and come out joyous, kind, and loving on the other side. I don't know if the sentiments are the same on your side with your mum, and everyone's got a different situation, but that's what I see now.
Yeah,
and I'm just kind of like,
definitely. Like, I mean, that's amazing. That's great. Like, that's all you can ask for, right? Is is getting to your later years in life and sort of dropping all the hardcore, over the top emotional reactions to everything and sort of coming to a more, letting everything sort of settle. And when it all settles, being just looking at everything with a much more stable understanding of who you are and what you're doing in the world and how to reflect that to others and all that kind of stuff. I guess, yeah, and I definitely look at that, my mother as beating adversity and fighting the odds and all that kind of stuff. I have a sadder look at my mother, though. I feel like she really struggled with that inner just soft satisfaction that you want to get to. So that sort of saddens me. And she's quite, she's 77, 78 now. She's already just becoming, her demeanor's completely changed. Like,
in what way?
Well, it's funny because a lot of people will say, your mother's really easy to handle now, as in like, a lot of the family, they don't, all the uncles and aunties and cousins, when mum rocks up to a family get together, it's not an issue now. It's easy because she'll just sit there very quietly and all that. But unfortunately, that's not due to getting to a very calm, settled place. It's more due to memory sort of going a bit, and I think like not having the same sharp edge that she used to have. So unfortunately, it's sort of that due to that sad thing that sets in with older age. And I think her quick decline, well, is it a quick decline? I don't know. It's hard for me to know because I'm not there with her physically. But I think that decline has a lot to do with not ever really having the tools or not using the tools to beat those odds with proper counselling and proper care and all that kind of stuff. She leant too hard into Jesus solving everything.
But why? Why did she need to?
Yeah, why did she need to? As in, what was the actual?
Why do you think she felt that need and desire? Why do people search for that stuff?
I think, well, for her personally, I think it came from abuse as a child. She's got a couple of stories of sexual abuse that are obviously deeply scarring, man. That stuff is horrendous, what it does to a child, and especially for that generation before it was openly talked about, before people were able to openly discuss it and admit that it happened, and generally there was so much more guilt and shame associated with it because it was all your fault, right? In your mind, you couldn't ever speak up and say that a Catholic priest had done something to harm you in that way. I mean, obviously it must be your fault to tempt that Catholic priest to do that. That's what goes on in a kid's mind. So, yeah, so like to me, it's just a really sad story. Like, so it's that classic thing of finding new hope in something like born-again Christianity and then suddenly believing that you are a chosen prophet within that and that the power of your words to others becomes a significant role in the saving of the world. I mean, that was my mum's whole thing. She really believed she was a prophet for the end times, saving the world. And that was such an almighty, huge role to play that it gave her such hope and power to be significant, and it gave all her pain importance. But unfortunately, it also steered her away from recognizing that she needed to just get basic counseling to work through it. So she just kept having mental breakdowns, and no matter how much I tried to sort of encourage her to talk to someone, she would always say, no, Jesus will heal me. And it's that irony of like, yeah, it's the irony of someone lying on the side of the road dying and the doctor keeps walking past and the person keeps going, no, I don't need your help. God's going to reach down and heal me. And then dies and goes to heaven, and God says, I kept sending you doctors.
Doctor. It's a great story. Well, this is the longest intro banter ever.
All right. Are we on? I don't know.
No, I haven't even started yet.
Oh, so right, okay.
This is great.
Sorry,
but
I thought we were already rolling.
No, but honestly, sometimes these moments happen when they're meant to happen. And the one thing I do want to just lastly say in relation to that, like, sometimes pain and suffering is our greatest teacher, right? And I do respect anyone that does try to confront that through any alternative means and look for something deeper that's maybe not of this world. And as I get older, I start to respect that more, whether it's my belief or not. I've got a lot of admiration for those people. And it's funny you mentioned that thing about, your mum said, I don't have to, I'm not having a breakdown. I don't need a doctor because God's going to save me. I mean, my mum used to say the same thing. Like, she didn't believe that depression was a thing or mental illness was even a thing. It was just someone who is further away from God.
Yeah.
And, I don't know anymore. Like, I'm very much like, mate, are they right? Maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're right. I don't know. But anyway, something to ponder.
Yeah, fuck, man. Such a massive subject. Holy shit. It's been such a... Yeah, okay. Let's get into it.
Oh, fuck. Let's get started.
Yeah. No.
Okay, here we go. We're starting. This is for Clementine and Otis. All right, shout out to our sponsors, Indosol. They're the major sponsor of the THT podcast. They're a B Corp certified company who make rad footwear from recycled motor vehicle tires. If you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you must be so sick of me saying this, but they're an awesome company. They have distributors all over the world, like Europe, USA, Australia, Indonesia, Japan, the Middle East, Singapore, Taiwan, so they can get your footwear to you fast. If you go online to their website, indosole.com, that's INDOSOLE.com, use code THT at checkout. You'll get a 15% discount and you'll be supporting me to continue producing weekly episodes. So thanks for your love and support. Also, check out the Wave Key Surf Training Program by Brad Gerlach. The guy's a legend, master of the sport. He's such a deep and spiritual human, and he applies that to his surfing practices. It's much further and much beyond than just tearing up a wave and trying to look good. It's about connecting deeply with the ocean and with yourself. So if you go to wavekey.com, that's WAVEKI, and use code WAVEKEYTHT, all uppercase, at checkout, you'll get a discount on membership. And lastly, a big thanks and shout out to the Survival Apnea course by Augusto Vegas. They can teach you how to be ocean resilient. He's a free diver. He's an oceanman. He's a spear fisherman. He's a big wave surfer from Peru, and he'll teach you how to hold your breath for 5 minutes underwater. So whether you're a surfer or not, he'll teach you processes in regards to building your cardiovascular system, but also your self-confidence when you're under duress. And you can apply that to any situation in your life, whether it's in the ocean or in a friggin' boardroom meeting when you've got some gnarly executive boardroom guy giving you shit. I don't know. So anyway, use code THT podcast at checkout. And just go to survivalapnea.com. That's survivalapnea.com. All right, let's go.
I'm having a good time.
You are?
Yeah.
I can tell.
And we are rolling too.
Terrible happy talks. Terrible happy talks. Terrible happy talks. Terrible happy talks. Today's guest is Athron. Athron was a pass. Athron was a pass. I can't believe I'm doing the intro at 13 minutes. I'm leaving the first bit out. I might take the C-bomb out, Athron, but that's like the intro banter, the most intro banter ever. But it was kind of like we had to have that discussion, bro, and it was meant to happen. But anyway, so Athron was a past guest on the show, dating all the way back to episode 13. Back when I was a complete rookie. I'm still a rookie, but a complete rookie.
Rookie for life.
I'm a rookie for life, mate. And once a kook, always a kook. You're born a kook, you die a kook, Athron. So, yeah, that's 84 episodes ago that Athron was on. So, holy shit, things have changed since then. My life has changed dramatically. Athron is an Australian singer, songwriter, and music producer who has forged a career in Bali, Australia, and the United States over the last 10 years. Athron is also co-founder of the Bali Rooftop, a space where local and travelling musicians play and record music precariously high above the rice fields of the suburb of Kerobokhan in Bali, literally on the roof of his house. There's no handrail up there, and you're about 3 stories off the ground. I think those musicians are recording on adrenaline, dude.
It's a big part of it. We got to pump them up, man, before they get up or when they get up.
True. You do, yeah. I was scared. I mean, and I recorded 2 podcasts on that space, one with Kai Mata and one with the lovely Leanna Rachel.
Yeah, he did.
He's also the host of the Bali Rooftop podcast, so you can check it out, and I'll put links to that in Athron's show notes. So, yes, he's just produced a new album. We're going to talk about that today. He's such an epic dude. I have a bond with this guy like no other in a very, very odd way. So today, Athron is with me to catch up, talk about the creative processes on his new album, which is called Heartfelt Echoes in a Digital Womb. We're going to talk about his experiences, challenges, and hopes for the future. Athron, welcome.
Wow, man, what an intro. I love it.
Fuck.
That's gold. And yes, man, what an odd connection we have. Like odd doesn't seem like the right word because it's such a great bond that it is definitely the kind of bond that you don't expect to have with someone that you're doing a podcast interview with, sort of, in your 40s. It's just out there. I love it.
Do you think a higher power or a spirit of the universe brought us together for a reason?
I mean, far out. That's just you've just ripped the lid off the deepest discussion right there. Nice opener. I'm really, despite being really spiritual with my beliefs, like in terms of believing in spirituality, I've still got a bit of adversity towards the idea that things are, that believing totally in things being guided and pushed externally. I don't know if they are.
Why?
Just simply, I find that it can often be a crutch people lean on. Like it's used too much. Like, the universe did that or whatever. I prefer to sort of work on reaction, as in like work with the situation and work out how to heal it or make it work for the better, no matter how negative it was or whatever. But I don't know. There's too much grey in the idea that, that happened to you, that was done to you on purpose to teach you a lesson. I just find there's just too many examples of how could you say that to someone in that position? Like, think of how many millions of people have suffered absolutely horrendous lives and never had a choice and never had a moment to even learn from it. Like, we could go into all sorts of examples of horrendous, deaths and all that kind of and situations people have been in. I never like to look at those situations and go, well, the universe did that to you on purpose. So what was your lesson? Like, so I kind of fight back a bit on the idea that a spirit world pushed or organized something to happen to you. But I certainly value that things have happened. Like, I really value that. I don't, whether it's coincidence or whether it's just chance, I really love that it's pretty out there that we know each other from such a formative part of both our lives when we were kids, and we coincidentally came to know each other again as adults. It's crazy.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I'm sorry, but I can't help it. Yeah. Well, going back in line with what you were saying, how do you rationalize pain, suffering, grief, injustice when it occurs to you, when it actually occurs for you? How do you rationalize it? Because in my opinion, when people do turn to, you said spirit of the universe or a religion or a belief system, it's often in times of adversity because they have nowhere else to turn. So I'm just curious, and I don't want to challenge you too much.
It's funny. It'll probably sound like I'm contradicting myself now, but
how do you cope?
Well, I believe that, obviously, I'm not discounting pain and suffering as a tremendous force in our lives for learning and growth. I mean, that is absolutely what makes us, and it really does make us. It's really it's the fabric of who we become. It's the bone that breaks and then heals stronger and won't break where it was broken before. It's that's what we're built from. So I'm certainly not discounting that it's valuable. It's more, are things specifically planned to happen to us? Like, are they written? Is there a script? And I sort of prefer the idea that that things happen through a multiple amount of human choice, and those situations we work with. We have a choice. Like, we're always given the choice to work with every situation based on how we want to react to it. And sure, those the very first knee-jerk reaction to any situation is going to be truly hard to comprehend and control, because some situations are so horrible that you don't have time or ability or mental capacity to react in a strong, healthy, adult, decisive way. You might just react horrifically and go through a grief process that is terrible. But eventually you get to a point where you can start reflecting and making choice to grow out of it in the way in which you choose. So, okay, so your question was like, what was the question again? Okay, yeah. I'm actually like, this is. I'll just throw something weird out there. Like, I'm becoming even more and more open to the idea of past lives. I used to laugh at this stuff, and I'm becoming more and more open to it, just through incredible studies that have been going on with, past life therapy and people under hypnosis, recounting past lives and all those kinds of things. So I'm open to all sorts of really out there concepts like that, but I still kind of get frustrated when people use that stuff as an excuse. I still think it comes. Yeah, like there's a real. To me, there's got to be a balance.
There's a line. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. You're not discounting it at all. Just basically, from what I understand, you're saying that just don't use it as an excuse, because in effect, you can either create your own suffering or you can create your own happiness. You can choose to wallow in it and be a victim. Is that what you're sort of saying? Like, don't be a victim of circumstance?
Okay. How about this? Like, imagine that you and I, pre-birth, we're hanging out in whatever exists out there, and we actually say to each other, "Hey, why don't we go down and live out these lives where we end up meeting at the age of 8 or 9 under crazy circumstances where our parents are both spiritual prophets for the apocalypse and having crazy prayer meetings, and we're sort of running around the streets while our mums are praying in tongues and like getting to know each other in this weird capacity. And then like we'll lose contact, and then years later we'll bump into each other through a mutual friend in Bali. Like
that was literally almost 30 years later, 30 years later.
Yeah. So like, imagine we look down and we go, that life is going to happen because, let's pretend that time doesn't exist the way we think it does, and it's all viewable from outside the earth. You can view this incredible map of what's going to happen. So we go down and we live out those lives. I'm actually open to that concept, but the idea that something specifically wrote a painful situation and decided to write it out and make it happen to someone. Like the idea that someone wrote, "Oh, my mum is going to get abused and therefore she will become that Christian woman, and that will allow Athron to meet Shannon." That gives me shudders, because I'm like, I don't think anyone's writing this pain out. I think it's all reaction. Like it's all based on human choice. Like the shit happens due to our shit choices. And then perhaps we within that are able to work with it or see that it's going to happen and decide to live out those lives. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but it's no,
it makes great sense. I love it.
Yeah. I find that people can get so caught up in the spiritual stuff and that it's all the universe and all that kind of stuff. They can lean on it as a really big excuse and sort of move so far away from reality and their own choices, and like not really want to admit the things they're doing are their own choice and their own doing, and it just became
cop out.
Yeah, cop out, and it all becomes sort of catchphrases and cliched shit that they keep just regurgitating. But
inspirational memes.
Inspirational memes.
Do you like them?
Oh, I'm not a fan, mate. Not a fan.
Why not?
No, man. I just shudder at anything slightly cliche. Just sort of makes me go, like. I remember
cliches are cliches for a reason.
Yeah. I feel like I'm getting all high and mighty now.
High and mighty.
The bastard in me is coming out, yeah. Like, I remember when I travelled to India.
You're not a bastard.
Well, I am actually.
Tell me about that Keep going.
I remember when I travelled to India, and like one of the things that, like, it's that there it really becomes that sharp contrast to the thing I'm talking about, like finding a deeper truth that you believe in within a atmosphere of a lot of cliched bullshit. That's like something I really noticed there. Was like I was in Rishikesh, and just there's a lot of people drawn there that are so overly into that whole world that it just becomes their language. And once it becomes your language, you can very easily speak that language, and it can almost become meaningless in the way you use it. Like, I'd bump into someone in the morning and just be like, "Oh, hey man, how you doing? And what are you up to today?" And the reaction would be like, "Well, I'm just going to flow whichever way the river takes me." And it's like, man, just asking what you're up to today. Like, are you going for coffee or like, like what you just said to me doesn't actually have any meaning because you're just using a line that sounds all enchanted, but there's no meaning to it. And that's when cliches annoy me.
I get it. And you would see it a lot in Bali, right?
Oh, yeah. Bali's a magnet for that stuff. In every yeah.
Go. Sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
Oh, no, like just in every capacity. I mean, Bali's a magnet in terms of it's got a draw card for so many different types of worlds, not just that spiritual, searching for a greater, higher understanding sort of world, which is really prominent here because Bali's got such a beautiful, incredible spiritual energy to it. There, I said it too, which it does, and it draws a lot of people here for that, for looking for that because they feel that and they want to explore it. But also the opposite to that, the party scene, and then the surfing scene, and then whatever it is you're into. There's a scene here that's really strong. But it draws the most intense people from those crowds to come here. And then the loudest voice of any group is always the one that's heard the most, right? So then you get because it's a small place with the loudest voices, you just get the most intense versions of every genre rocking around on this small island. It's crazy, man. It makes it fun and interesting, I'll tell you what.
I will say, like, Bali and India are very spiritual places just because of the local culture and religions that in those places. They really are. You can feel it in Bali and you could probably feel it in India, And it is interesting that people who are searching for answers gravitate towards those zones of the world. That's all.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say people, I mean Westerners searching for answers.
Yeah, it's a very, very white privileged way to roll, isn't it? It's funny how that works. But obviously it's for a reason. It's not based on nothingness. There's an absolute definite reason why people are drawn to that in the first place. Like Byron Bay in Australia, and these places have there's something incredible about them that draws people in the beginning, in the first place. And then you're just going to get all sorts of characters that are drawn, that end up, once a place becomes popular and famous for that thing, you're going to get every single shade of character coming to explore it, right? So there's always going to be a level that gives a place a bad name after that.
Do you think because you've lived in Bali for so long, maybe you've become a little bit jaded with that aspect of it?
Do I sound jaded, do I? Oh, Jadetron. He's getting old. He's getting old and bitter.
How long have you lived in Bali? How long have you lived there?
I am getting that. Oh, mate, definitely getting that skepticism going on for sure. But your question is, that's a fair question. I would say that, I've been in Bali for 12 years. I've been coming here for 15, 16 years now, 16 years maybe since I first came. And definitely, like when I first moved here, I was editor and writer for the Beat magazine. So I came in with this like really fresh, excited attitude about Bali. And I remember my first articles there was a bit of arguing between myself and the owner, Stuart at the time, who would read my articles and go, "Oh, mate, sounds like you just dropped in, didn't it? Like you just got here. You just came in with the first shower." And he was right in the sense that he'd been here a lot longer and he had already sort of developed that kind of like, "Mate, what are you talking about?" sort of thing. But then I was going, but it is like that. Everything's so fresh and amazing. And I was looking at it through these fresh eyes. And now I look back and read those articles I first wrote and I go, man, I sound like I was a newcomer. So, I mean, there's definitely, when you get to any new place, you're just excited and you see all that incredible shit going on and you just get caught up in all the excitement. But you do always slowly drop layers as just that onion is peeled the longer you live in a place. And then, of course, you notice the people that are sort of stuck in that place and start to just, I don't know.
What keeps you there?
What keeps me here? It's a good question. I mean, it absolutely feels like home now, and there's something about.
I get that.
Yeah, I mean that's a given, I guess. There's something. The reason I was drawn here is because I'm always drawn to places that are just looser, like cause yourself to question your own boundaries more rather than be told what they are. I found that in Bali and in this whole atmosphere of a crazy place like this where sort of anything goes to in a lot of ways, I always find that having to learn lessons where you end up having to decide what is healthy for you in terms of boundaries and where your morals lie and where your lines are, you have to draw those lines yourself. Through experiences where you get knocked back or you hurt yourself or you hurt others, you realize, okay, this is where I begin and this is where I end and this is what I stand for and this is what I don't stand for. And those things come through your own experience and your own exploration rather than constantly living in an environment where those boundaries are set for you and you never sort of break out of them or push beyond them to discover how it affects you if you do. And I find for me that's way more extreme here than living in a place like Australia, which is getting, especially Sydney, it's becoming more and more conservative, more and more rules, more and more like, and I don't want to knock, there's a lot of people living there that it's a great place to live. It's an incredible place to live. It's got so many benefits. It's a beautiful place, but I certainly don't want to knock people that live there. That's for sure. But for me personally, I enjoyed breaking out of that. And now it would be very hard for me to go back into that lifestyle now that I've lived here for a long time and obviously through that you sort of, as you grow your roots in a place, it's much harder to pull them out. And yes. I love shaking shit up, but I don't. So I'll always travel from Bali and always be open to moving out of Bali, but I don't feel like going back to Australia would ever shake shit up. I feel like I'd have to go a bit more extreme and travel to somewhere else that got even crazier and pushed me out of those boundaries again and shook my world up again and forced me to rethink everything again. That's the kind of traveling I like, rather than sort of stepping back into a more conservative, comfortable zone.
You feel more inspired creatively?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah.
I mean, creativity for me often comes from it's a weird thing, creativity. Like, sometimes I'm most creative when I book myself into a really cheap hotel room and all it's got is a bed and shitty tiled floors and a great resonance, and I walk in and clap, and I hear the clap resonate, and I go, oh, and then I sing a few notes and go, oh my God, and I grab the guitar and just a song pours out immediately because it sounds so nice in there. So sometimes it's the most bare, boring environment that inspires creativity. But also being in a situation where you're hitting lots of weird situations where you're having to question yourself and your own boundaries, as I said before, that also over time constantly pushes you into new experiences which are going to cause you to want to write about them as well. So
amazing.
Yeah, so Bali definitely helps for that.
I mean, before COVID, I know that you were spending a large part of the year in Japan. Is that correct?
Yeah, large part.
And you seem to be going
2 months.
Excuse me. And you keep going back and forth. You were going back and forth a lot to the USA.
Yeah.
Now, post COVID, what does that look like in terms of being able to, travel and play music?
It does not look good. I mean, it's been, in brutal honesty, it's been devastating, horrible on that front.
Well, can you break it down for us if you don't mind? Why? Because
it's just simply been stripped away, that possibility and that choice. I mean, I sort of I just got into that rhythm, which was, I guess for about 4 or 5 years I've been doing that, building up that circuit of Japan, US. But it's still always based on, obviously, the need, like the idea of tourism and the idea of, I play in a lot of places where it's based on tourism and travel, and obviously I need to travel. And so like that was just obviously COVID just completely stripped that away. So, and the entertainment industry has just been decimated. So now even the idea, first of all, my gigs in Bali stopped instantly, and they completely rely on tourism to regain any kind of enough financial sort of flow into Bali to even justify give venues justification to pay artists to play. So that's gone, and then flying to places like the US to play, or Australia to play, or Japan to play really comes down to, even if it starts to come back, are they going to want to hire someone from overseas, or are they going to want to give that work to people that are in their local vicinity who are desperately needing the work back first, and which is an understandable choice. So like, if I want to go and play in Melbourne again, how many musicians in Melbourne are desperate for gigs and desperate for work and all trying to, and then for me to just go, oh, can I come back from Bali and take your spots? Like, so yeah, man, it's real. That's one of the hardest things. Like, I've done one gig in a year.
Wow.
Which I really miss it. On the flip side, like I really enjoyed the cocoon for quite a while of like not, there's also the flip side to it, which was I used to play 4 or 5 nights a week, and suddenly I had heaps of time on my hands, which pushed me into this creative cocoon, which is awesome. But, it's getting to that point now where I'm like, damn it, I really miss it. I really miss that connection with people.
Yeah, because, that was something I was wondering. As a creative, as an artist who has sustained a living from it for many years over there, playing at the best clubs and venues across, Bali and Indonesia, How have you survived, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, yeah, I've survived from. Well, there's a lot of luck involved, and being fortunate. It's definitely not an easy position. I've been very fortunate that my family has helped me out a lot in terms of my cousin's got a place up in North Bali where I have moved to, which I moved to very quickly when the pandemic kicked in.
Is that more for safety reasons?
It was for a mix of safety and everything. Like my cousin's he's very high up in the security world, like security advisory world, ex-military, been a security advisor for years and runs the security for the World Bank in Australia. So pretty decent position when it comes to knowing how to forecast things and plan for possible outcomes. And so I obviously when I got back to Bali and everything was just going balls up and everyone was just going, what the hell is going on? Where could this go? I called him and he just sort of, he's married to a Balinese woman who's from a village in North Bali originally. And so he bought land there and built a place there as his holiday home for him and his wife and his kids, and sort of a place he'll probably end up retiring to, I'd say, because it's as a beautiful way of connecting with his wife's village and keeping her connected with them. And but it was empty, so he said, "Man, just get up there and live up there. You know, if you've got no work and everything, and you need to live cheap and also be in a place that's safe and sort of in a sort of secure zone, just get up there." So I moved up here really quickly. So I've been based here, which, you know, super cheap, live off the local markets, shopping for food and you can spread your money. Man, you don't spend money on anything here but just veggies. No. So there's that factor. Yeah. Super lucky, man. I'm so grateful for that because there's a lot of, you know, this being in the music industry here and being in the music scene. I know so many musicians who have dedicated their life to music, and it's a long road to get to a point where you can live off it. It's a crazy long road. Not just the practice and the dedication to actually playing and going through all those years and years of. There's a big weight, obviously, behind choosing to be a musician, and that is there's just always a feeling of like, fuck, am I really making the right choice here? Because you do sort of get looked at as playing with a hobby too much rather than taking life seriously. Yeah. So to get that to a point where you're actually making money and surviving off it is such a long road. Yeah. And then to be able to get the gigs and to sustain that. And there's so many musicians that live and work in Bali, like local Balinese and Indonesian musicians that have come here from all around Indonesia to work. And it took them a lot to get to a point where they could live and survive off that.
What you were talking about is super interesting, and it seems like you're super lucky to have that opportunity. And as you were sort of telling that story, I was just reflecting on, you know, the standard of living and the cost of living in the Western world compared to, say, Bali, where you can live very cheap. And it really highlights how little we need as humans. And I think a lot of fear that came with the pandemic was that people were having to downsize their lifestyle, which was far beyond most of their needs. Do you agree?
Oh, big time. Like it's, you know, there's that classic thing that you always, when you start to earn more, you up your lifestyle. So everyone always has this idea that they'll be able to save more and all this kind of stuff. But then obviously with a bigger income comes a bit bigger outgoing, you know. We just do it naturally. And like, man, in this situation, I'm constantly reflecting on just the kind of cash I used to spend. Like, I've never been an amazing earner of money. So, but I was still meeting my income by just like I got into the habit of never cooking for myself because there's Gojek, right? You can order food here to be delivered to your house so easily but then now I look at what I spend on food by shopping in the markets and cooking for myself, and I look back at that, I'm like, holy shit, I used to just splurge on constantly ordering food to my door. And you're like, fuck, think of all the money I could have saved if I had, So, yeah, it's an incredible lesson in how much we can, and obviously how happiness, it's that old cliche that happiness doesn't come from external things. That being in this situation of no work and no income and just surviving off the basic, what am I doing each day? There's obviously a huge mental battle each day with feeling of self-worth and hope for the future and all that kind of stuff. That all comes into play when you've been in a position like this absolutely. It's been a year of sort of, I'm living like sort of 3 hours away from anyone I know.
What?
Like I'm up north, I've moved 3 hours.
Yourself?
Yeah, I had a few months where my housemate Phil, who who you've interviewed as well, came up and lived up here, and I do have mates come up and visit every now and then for a spell, like for a week or two, which is great. But I'm predominantly based up here by myself, so it's I love being alone. I love getting away and being by myself and being creative. But usually it's in a pocket that I choose, where I go away for some isolation time to write and all that kind of stuff. It's not usually in a situation where it's forced upon me and I don't have a specific end date to get back to normality. So it's been so that's obviously brought in a lot of interesting mental waves.
Are you getting lonely?
There's definitely times where I would love more company or whatever, but I really do enjoy being alone. It's more about, I go more through waves of the questions of what the ultimate meaning to everything is and where it's headed, and my self-worth and purpose and all that kind of stuff within it. I think that's normal as a human to go through that stuff. It's pretty, but there's definitely an extended, exaggerated amount of time to go through that when you're up here alone. But it also really it's a real lesson in, like you said, like learning what really matters and how living off hardly anything can be your mental stability and happiness is based on how you are with yourself in those situations. It's not at all based on how many toys you got to play with, or it's there's been a billion books written about that, but it's not until you live it at its absolute crux that you really start to go, damn, that's true. When you've got no distractions, like we fill our life with distractions. That's what we do. We and even in my position here, I have to wonder sometimes whether even my creative output is my distraction, because I'm OCD with writing and creating, and I literally can't spend one day up here by myself just relaxing and lying in the sun or whatever. Every day I need to get up and have a schedule of, right, I need to be 8 hours of video editing, recording, writing music, outputting. I've just got to do stuff to make myself feel worthy, give myself self-worth. And often I stop and think, man, maybe is that a just constant distraction from my own? Is that what's going on there? It's. Do
you still have the property in Kerobokhan? Or is that gone? It's gone.
Yeah, that's gone. It's such a shame.
Well, the Bali Rooftop is gone.
Yeah. Look, the Bali Rooftop's not over, that's for sure. Unfortunately, I mean that, we were paying yearly rent on that place. I don't want to go into a sob story of all that, but definitely we couldn't maintain that being in this situation. It was two of us living in the house. We're both musicians relying on a music performance income. So we couldn't keep up that property. So we had to move out, which is a real shame. But we will definitely, we recorded a whole bunch of Bali Rooftop acts. Like we did like 7 days of 7 bands in a row, which we're slowly releasing now. So we've got that all covered. We've got heaps of content, which is awesome. And then plus it's wet season now. We're just coming out of wet season. So wet season, it's impossible to record on a rooftop anyway, because there's constant downpours, especially around sunset. So, but we've got some good plans for this year once the dry season hits in, to keep doing the Bali Rooftop on various rooftops around Bali. Like,
no, yeah, it's an awesome concept.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about a Bali Rooftop, right, with an amazing view, and we've certainly used that rooftop to its full capacity. So getting to new rooftops and new background scenes and showing people different locations around Bali behind the incredible music it's got to offer, that's a pretty cool angle we can take.
It amazes me how you can get such a good quality sound in an open air space like that.
It is pretty, like, even I'm spun out at how good the sound is that we can get there. I mean, it does make sense as well. Like, rooms are usually bigger headaches than what you would imagine. Like, they don't just keep the sound in and give you allow you to hear everything properly because it's all enclosed. They create a whole world of drama when it comes to resonance and echo and all the different frequencies that are bouncing around inside that room is what causes feedback. So you've got a million problems that stem from recording within a room, and you need to be a very qualified sound engineer and really understand sound and frequencies and how it all works to be able to deal with that in the mixdown process to get a good sound out of a room. And that's why so much money and time and energy goes into building recording studios that have the perfect sound, because people need to record within a closed space that don't cause those problems. So when you're recording on a rooftop, you immediately get rid of all those issues of echo and bounce. You've obviously got other issues of wind and outdoor noises that could come into play, but actually the balance is more positive than negative. We've found
probably creates a bit of authenticity and maybe some ambience in a way.
Yeah, and it gets a real cool vibe from the acts, man. Like it's been so cool, like seeing people play on that. For me, it's so much fun. I love it because I get to step out of being the performer, and I get to actually just enjoy it, watch my favorite local musicians or acts or people that I really love on the scene, people that I've often gigged with. I get to actually just sit back and watch them do a performance. And there's something about being up in that, when you get people up on that rooftop, it's pretty awe-inspiring, like being up on a rooftop with an incredible view like that. And that obviously inspires a better performance. Like sometimes when you go to perform in a studio for someone or whatever, it might look good on camera, but the actual reality of the situation while you're playing is you're in a bit of a dark, weird, enclosed space that wasn't very inspiring to play in, and you had to draw from you had to draw from within yourself to get into the mood. But when you get people up on that rooftop, man, they're in the mood to play and sing, and because it's such a beautiful spot.
You know what? I just recently, I got YouTube on my TV, and I actually just went to the Bali Rooftop channel and just let a whole bunch just play while I'm doing stuff around the house. And you'd sort of like hear the music, and then you'd sort of check in and watch some of the acts, and you can just tell that they're psyched. Like every band is so excited to be, up there playing like that. Who was some of the standout acts over the years for you on the Bali Rooftop?
Oh man, there's
so many.
There's been so many. Like we've now released, I think the last one was number 30, which doesn't. Yeah, 30 may not seem like a lot to some people, but the whole process of setting up, getting up there, there's a lot involved in it, and then all the post-production and getting it all together and releasing it. It's a lot of work, and it's a passion project. So, it takes a lot of time and energy. So 30 for us feels it's a lot, and
it is a lot.
But like just off the top of my head, I mean, there were some incredible moments with some international artists that obviously just were kind of mind-blowing that sort of ended up happening, like the Black Seeds and Tikitane and Tikitane, like that. They were just incredible in the sense that, wow, fuck, man, I grew up listening to these guys, and now they're on my roof in Bali. What the hell is going on? So that was great, and just great people. But obviously that's not initially why we did it. We did it to draw attention to the musicians in Bali that live and operate within Indonesia, and
nurture the scene.
So guys like like Mata Jiwa, just an incredible duo. Under's vocals are just rock solid, and like rock being the operative word, like he's just an absolute champion of a singer. That just sitting there in that space, listening to someone scream like that was incredible. Good mate of mine, Ian Stevenson, Wyan Joss. His song is just such a beautiful song. That's a song that sticks in your head forever.
I noticed there's one recently, I think you did with Rizal Abdul Hadi. You know Rizal?
Yeah, the Rhythm Rebels.
He has the Rhythm Rebels.
That's another good mate of mine, Reza on drums, who is the drummer in Matajiwa. They were just pumping, man. Like, and it's honestly, it's hard to say standout, because we've sort of, there's so many different genres that they're just all so cool for their own style and genre. Like, as soon as I start rattling off my favorites, I'll end up doing a list of 30 because I've loved everyone.
You loved everyone. But I also just think, I look at it as like, what an amazing legacy project. And you've captured those moments for those artists and for Bali. Like, they're not going to go anywhere now, and they'll be looked at and watched and listened to for years and years. Like, I don't know anyone else that's really done that in Bali. I think it's an amazing legacy project for that. This moment in time of when this music was coming out, and and I love how that predominantly you've got local artists, and you're also capturing those international artists when they come through as well. I mean, it'll be legend. I mean, it's already legendary, but I think it will continue to become more legendary over time.
Yeah, I really hope we can make it grow. I mean, it's for us, that was always the thing. Like, especially even getting the international acts in, it was more of an opportunity. Well, if the international acts, I mean, it's about anyone that really, we want to sort of bring anyone in that's got a really strong connection to Bali. So if an international act is playing here, then all the more reason to have them on the show, and it's awesome for us if they do. But that another massive positive outcome to that is that their audience, from viewing them on that rooftop, they're going to be like, well, what's the next? Or the next video is going to start playing, and it's going to be someone like the Rhythm Rebels or Kaimata or whoever it might be, and then they're going to see an Indonesian musician performing, and they're going to be like, oh wow, like look at the talent coming out of that place.
Badass.
So we really wanted to use it as a magnifying glass. It's almost like the international acts are a magnifying glass to get a better look at what's going on here and the musicians that are from here.
Yes, Athron, that's such a good project, dude. I love it, and I really love it. And I love your podcast as well.
Cheers, man.
I said this the other day. I watched one of your podcasts because, like, you do the visual with the audio as well, which is something I made a decision not to do, considering I'm producing weekly episodes and I'm literally a one-man show. It's another layer. And like you said, we only produce 30 episodes. But I'm like, dude, that's massive to produce 30 episodes, considering that you were doing it with audio, visual, and then combined with the vast amount of equipment that goes with it, and the sound engineering is probably a lot more technical than just doing a conversation voice recording.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, hats off to you. Like, and I said this to you in our last podcast together. I said, like, I really feel like you're one of the hardest working musicians I know. And I want to know, like, what keeps you going after all these years, and especially, hitting like some hard times now because of the pandemic and the restrictions that came along with it. What's keeping you going? Is it just because you don't know any other way to do life?
Well, it's interesting actually when you say especially with the restrictions and the whole COVID situation, that situation really answers that question in the sense that by having my work cut off as a musician and by having my ability to get out there and perform and make money from it completely cut off, did that cause me to then go, oh, well, I'll try something else? And no, I mean, it caused me to lean even further into creativity and writing and music, simply because it is what it's always been. It's my absolute savior. It always has been. It's literally the thing. I feel like it's my soul more than I'm my soul. You know what I mean? It's the one moment. If I was like, if it's half me and half music, and we're sort of living in the same body, it's the moment where we become. Oh, it sounds funny, but there's something about music, writing music, playing music, that literally makes me feel alive. That's what makes me feel alive. And so in a time like this where things are even harder and mentally you're battling more with what you're doing and why you're doing it, that's when I've gone back into music and creating and writing and even more because it sustains me. So yeah, like there's definitely never been even a moment of choice over all the years. There's more been the bigger question that's come up over the years has been, God damn it, why couldn't I have had another obsession or something else that drove me? Because it's something else that drove me might have led to more, when in those moments where you're frustrated or whatever, might have given me more, look, why couldn't I have been driven by sales? I've got, and been like hit my 40s with a bunch of houses and property and been an incredible real estate developer. There's definitely times. Yeah, I know, no way. But like, there's definitely times where you're thinking, damn it, if I'd gone that route, maybe I'd be set up better, mate. But the truth is, so what I'm saying is, it was never a choice of like, oh, I'll just keep doing music because I want to. It's almost like I've never had a choice. It's just the one thing that absolutely drives me, and I can't do it. Can't even imagine not doing it.
Maybe this is the universe's journey for you.
Are we getting back to that, are we? No, I chose before I stepped into this body.
No, it's true. And going back to what you were saying about, I guess when it's a hard slog, you probably wish, fuck, why couldn't I have developed property and had this and that? But you know what, man? Fuck all that shit. Sorry. Because it's been in the last few years of my life, and I've been someone that's been very driven to conform to that, and I've always hung my potential happiness on having a house, a car, a solid job, enough income to go on regular holidays and buy whatever I want. It's the biggest life lesson I've learned is that, it's so cliche. I'm sorry, I hate cliches, but it does not make you happy. In fact, it makes you more miserable. And again, when I was living in Bali and maybe associating, in a world where I was interacting with some extremely wealthy people through the place that I was working, money and stuff became their biggest burden. It was a hindrance. It was something that they were just bound by and miserable, and it was just like, whoa, and I guess the reason I want to speak to people like you in the first place, and I'm interested in people like you, is because you're one of the few and very small percentage of people in this world that go all in on their passion and go, this is what I am. This is every part of my being. This is what I do. This is how I'm going to live. And you wave caution to the wind and go, I'm not going to do that. But I think it's human nature to also desire and, surmise about what could have been, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's it's part of the package too, I guess. Sometimes I think it's just literally part of the package of
the human condition.
Yeah, the human condition. And then being someone that loves to pour out creativity, sometimes I think, damn it, is part of that package have to be a massive big section of the pie has to be self-doubt and like reflecting on things of what could have been. Yeah, but I guess it's just all part of it, right? It drives you into new self-discoveries and inner reflection's a big part of it. Definitely.
Yeah, but also too, man, like if you were sitting on your hands just waiting for everything to come your way, I'd be like, yeah, you know what, dude, you're full of shit. Fuck off. Like, but you're definitely not someone that sits on their hands. Like I said, you work so hard, you never stop, you know, and you are like doing that, and so that's why I'm super impressed. And you're also doing other side projects like your podcast, which actually I watched a few of them, and it fucking bummed me out because I'm like. He's way better at podcasting than me.
Mate, come on.
It's his side hustle. It's his side thing.
We're going to get into it.
You're just so much better at it. Last time you were on the podcast, like 84 episodes ago, you told like the most epic story about the search for your biological father.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and it was such an engaging story, and we had a laugh about it, but the seriousness of it wasn't lost. And you know, I very much acknowledge that there's many people out there who are in the same boat, who would like to know who their biological parents are and may not know. And you know, how's that journey unfolded for you since we spoke last?
It's been an incredible path of unfolding, actually. It's been bizarre. And I tell you what, it's like really shown that there's probably a lot of people out there that may be looking for their biological parents, but also probably a lot of people who aren't looking but may not even realize that there are some differences to what they know and what they believe and the reality of their biological situation. It's like the fact that we can now trace these things through DNA so easily is nuts, man. Like it really shines a light on, just how bizarre people's beliefs can be and how you can be led down the path so easily, the wrong path. So basically, I guess I should recap in case someone's listening that haven't listened to the old one. I spent my whole life believing I knew who my father was when I didn't have a relationship with him. I eventually found his kids on Facebook and then developed a relationship. 10 years later, went to America to finally meet the family, spent 3 days with them, thought I was all good and in and getting to know them. And then he sort of dropped the bombshell that he didn't believe I was his father. Blew me away. I completely believed my mother that he was, so I went through with a DNA test. There was a long process, actually, of trying to sort that out because it was a bit harder back then. This is 6 years ago. And then after a 2-month wait, got the DNA results back, and he wasn't my father. So it was a crazy slap in the face for me, and it was a real just complete twisting of reality because everything I'd based my whole life on suddenly twisted into a different version, and it really hits you that a belief system can be based on someone else's story rather than what you actually know to be fact. So so that's where we were at when I spoke to you last, was on the search for the real father, and had been a long bunch of years chasing a lot of really false leads and going down the wrong path and thinking I found some truth, but then not being able to get any further. And then beginning of last year, I sort of picked up the trail again, and I ended up, there's one other woman that I found that I was related to on Ancestry.com. And I was like, amazing. She was like within a first cousin radius, like at furthest of first cousin. And first cousin's pretty close, right?
Wow.
So this is actually 2 years ago that I found her. So I immediately wrote to her on Ancestry.com, sent her found her on Facebook, sent her messages, saw a picture of her on Facebook with an older woman that I assumed was her mother. And for a year, I never heard back from her. And I was quite shocked because usually you go on on those channels, Ancestry.com, because you're eager to find and connect, right? So it was surprising that she didn't respond. Anyway, a year went by and I just almost gave up until sort of beginning of last year, I think it was, or end of 2019. In Japan, I had some time on my hands. I thought, let's go with this again. I started research, trying to get in contact with her again. Got frustrated, looked up her name, looked up the area she lived in on Google, and boom, up comes her obituary. She died a few months before, or maybe even a month before I sent her that first message. And it turned out she wasn't the younger person in the photo on the Facebook profile. She was the older woman. And I was like, oh my God, the one connection died a month before I reached out to her. Yes, that was crazy. So at this point, but what it did do was open up a whole series of a whole stack of information on her obituary. Was a whole family tree, right? So, but I still couldn't find any contact with anyone in that family tree, and I had no idea how to place it. I ended up I looked like the dude out of Beautiful Mind. Like I had the wall of my room in Japan, which is covered in family tree graphs and little bits of information my mum had told me about the whole story. I'd chase those leads and crazy. Anyway, to break it down, I ended up, the only sort of my last resort was like, well, I'll just leave a message on the obituary of this woman. Now, she had died obviously a year or so earlier, so I'm thinking, who the hell is going to ever look at an obituary a year or so later? But I wrote a message and I said, look, if anyone reads this, I am related to this woman that passed away. And if you are her family, I am related to you. So I'd love to have contact with you and so we can chat about that. And I just sort of left it at that. And I thought, it's an obituary on a local newspaper website for someone over a year ago that died. No one's going to look at it. So I thought maybe one day, in 30 years, when someone's grandkids are doing a family tree history research, they'll go, oh my God, look at that. Anyway, last year, so I guess 6 months later, middle of last year, I get a message from this woman who says, hi there, I'm the daughter of the woman that you just wrote the comment on. That was my mother, and I'm intrigued as to who you are. Do you want to talk? Boom, flash forward. We end up doing Zoom calls. We have this whole amazing conversation. By the end of the conversation, I'm saying, look, do you know anyone within your whole family that fits the age group and the time and the place? My mother was there. And she goes, you know what? The only person I can think of that could possibly be your father is my brother. And I'm just like, what? And then she goes, you haven't got flat feet, have you? And I'm like, oh my God, I've got the flattest feet on the history of the planet, on Earth, And it turns out he had restless leg syndrome, which I suffer from immensely. Flat feet. I sent photos of my fingernails because my friends call me the Claw because I've got fingernails like a werewolf. And they're like, oh my God, he had the same fingernails. Anyway, I didn't want to place too much hope in it. Unfortunately, he passed away 4 years earlier while I was in the States looking for him. And there's this crazy interview I just found literally last night, actually. I found an interview I did in North Carolina when I was doing a tour through the US. And it was just after the other guy told me he didn't think he was my father. And I just got the DNA test and I didn't have the results yet. So in this interview, I'm talking on radio about how my father doesn't think he's my father and I'm waiting for the DNA results. And my next city that I'm going to is Atlanta. As it turns out, my real father was in Atlanta at that time, alive and well.
No way.
It's crazy. So anyway, unfortunately, he passed away. By last year when I found out who he was. But the crux of it was, so his sister says, I think my brother's your father. Unfortunately, he's passed away, but he's got 3 amazing children. So I contacted them and, flash forward, we did DNA tests and it was a long, grueling wait, but boom, family. He was definitely my father. And
get out.
So insane, man. Like, not only have I worked out who my father was, which I never thought I would, outside of the the saddening fact that I didn't get to meet him and that he passed away before I had a chance to, for him to even know about me. He has 3 kids that are just beyond awesome. And the similarities in character between us are just phenomenal. And the stories about him that I can relate to in terms of personality traits and things about myself that I've always wondered where that came from. It's incredible. So I've really come to a good place with that whole story. It's insane where it's ended up. And I literally talk to these guys most days. We've got a family chat now where I'm just talking to my brothers and sisters in the States. Yeah.
And how do you feel? How does it feel? Do you feel connected? Do you feel healed?
It's a huge amount of healing. I can't even tell you how much healing in ways that I didn't expect, to be honest. There was a huge thing that took place. Like I got on a Zoom chat, obviously in the beginning, with them and their mother. And there was a moment where I completely broke down and I realized something that needed healing, I guess, and that is that the mother said to me, looked at me on the Zoom and said, Athron, 100% he never knew about you, because if he had, he would have loved you and he would have been over there to meet you in a second. And I fell to pieces, because my whole story, my whole upbringing was this constant reminder that I had a father who rejected me and knew that I existed and didn't want to have a thing to do with me. And I'd built my whole sort of boy mentality on that. And a lot of my teenage angst and stuff was spawned from that. I really remember it was a major theme in my life, and with my writing, with my songwriting, with my poetry and all that kind of stuff. It was this real battle I constantly had, because I felt that I was constantly told that story of rejection. And to hear that it was a false story was the most incredible thing. And when she said those words, I reacted in a way I didn't expect. I just fell apart. But absolutely incredible moment of healing, and I feel so blessed now to realize that to be the truth, and to also know how incredible the family is, and to be connected with them. Yeah, it's great.
I mean, how do they feel? Do they feel the same?
They're loving it. It's great. Like of all the reactions that you can have, and all the ways it could have gone, they've just been so loving, so giving. They're big believers in communication, in getting everything on the table. He was big on that. He was it was a very strong part of their upbringing, was talking everything out, complete honesty and complete open communication about all problems and solving things directly. So they've just been incredible. They've been so giving and so open, just open arms. I've felt taken in like crazy, man. Yeah.
And you just wanted to know who your dad was. Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean,
really incredible.
I'll be straight with you, man. Like, it's special for me to hear right now in my life. I won't go into it, but it's really amazing to hear that you never knew who your father was, but you had this yearning to have a connection with him in some way, or just even know. I think that would be, just for other people to hear that, would make them feel less isolated in similar feelings. So, man, it's amazing, and thanks so much for sharing. Oh, man, such an amazing and intimate story, dude. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, isn't it? Like you always do feel, vindicated, I guess, when you hear of other people in the same position as you. Because it's so, especially when a story is rejection, you feel so alone in it, and so, yeah, man, if I ever heard that someone was in that position of looking for a parent or something, I'd just love to be able to talk to them and talk them through it, because it's a horrible place when you feel alone in that search.
Well, I'm going to put it out there, if anyone is sharing similar feelings and wants to reach out to Athron, I'm sure he'd love to hear from you, and you can find Athron through his variety of social media outlets, on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. where you can also find his work on the Bali Rooftop YouTube channel, which has got an amazing recordings of live music that he's done and his friends have done and international artists. And speaking of live music, you've just released another album. Like, let's give us a little bit of a summary of what that was about. Can we call it the isolation album or the life in the time of COVID album? Like, what brought it about?
You could definitely call it both those things. That's a major theme in not only its creation but also the concept that it's written with. Out March 19th, so it'll be out now on all streaming platforms. So that was basically it was spawned because I started playing with this idea of writing 1 minute songs and releasing 1 minute videos. I was sort of playing with that whole thing of the world is just so tuned into catchphrase, sound, like just quick flick passing moment, the
instant
scroll
gratification,
instant, like scroll through Instagram, and if people only want to look for a second before they move on to the next thing, and really noticing how that changes the scope of the music industry and your ability to share. I mean, obviously that strips artists of integrity when it comes to telling a deeper, longer, more intricate story. That's a big thing that we're losing with this digital age, is we're losing the chance to get real, true stories, because the depth of a story can't be told instantly. So I kind of challenge myself to try and write songs within an Instagram time frame of 1 minute, 60-second songs with 60-second music videos that would catch people's attention and hold them just long enough where they felt like they would watch it, because it says it's only a minute. They can see it's only a minute. So they would bother looking. But it had enough of a story within it and enough of a song flow to hold their attention and give and still bring a deeper meaning to them with the story. So that was kind of I started doing those, just mucking around, and I noticed there was a real reaction to it, that people were more likely to look at a 1 minute music video than they were if it was a 5 minute music video and only watch 1 minute. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah.
So that sort of spawned the idea, and then I thought, how about I do a 10-minute album? A 10-minute album. Every song has to be exactly 1 minute. Yeah, so it's 10 minutes, 10 songs. Each song is exactly 1 minute long, and then each song represents a month over a 10-month period of the lockdown for me. So the initial song is sort of like going into the wonder of what's going on. It feels like you've just dropped acid and you're like, what is happening now? Can my brain handle this? And then just going through the motions. And the other thing with it is it's all about this digital virus. Now, this isn't a conspiracy theory against the real virus, but just noticing how the internet, as something that we all clung to for deeper connection with the greater world, as we were all isolated, it in itself made us feel even more isolated through all the fear and misinformation and disinformation that we've been fed and confused with, just because it's the internet does that, right? The social media, and it really does confuse people and give us a feeling of inferiority, and just through the more you look at it, the more you feel like you're not. I almost feel like you're not part of it, not good enough for the rest of the world. And so it's sort of, the album's also sort of a play on that, and that journey into getting more reliant on the internet as a place to connect while we're isolated, but then feeling more overwhelmed by that distortion of reality that you get from it. So the album sort of goes into a point where it goes from really soft sort of music up into a really sort of quite metal rock, heavy rock sort of track, and then eases back into a really soft folky acoustic, ends on a soft folky acoustic track, because I wanted to bring it back to the idea that just that organic, real heart-to-heart connection is where things become way more real, and you're kind of reminded of what really is necessary and beautiful in the world. So I sort of ended on this sort of soft acoustic lullaby. So that's kind of like the journey and the concept that I wanted to put into the album, and I'll make videos for each song to represent that journey.
Oh, man, I love it. And I love the whole concept because I identify with that. I feel like that all the time. And it wasn't since I started the podcast that I really started to utilize and use social media. And I've used social media more in the last 2 years than I ever have. I mean, I actually disabled all my social media accounts when my daughter was first born because I thought it was taking my attention away from her.
Oh, that's great. And it does. Did that.
Yeah, but then when I started the podcast, I was like, well, I genuinely want a way to connect with people. And it has been beautiful for that, like and help, people reach out if they want to or, connect with the podcast and follow what's going on, which has just been like, surprisingly positive and amazing. But, yeah, because of that, I'm on it more. And, I mean, I often have feelings of inadequacy, like, especially when I watch YouTube clips of your podcasts. I feel shit. Just kidding. And with your like beautiful radio voice and your, I don't know, you remind me of Hugh
what are you
Grant
talking
as
about,
well. Mate? That's me. That's my voice. You arsehole. But listen, man, it's been epic. It's been like a long conversation, and yeah, we've been dealing with the coconut Wi-Fi of North Bali, which it's all part of it, man. I don't care,
it's definitely representative of the whole situation, isn't it?
It is, but we adapt, and also, I'll be editing and splicing it all together. However, I think your message is strong, Athron, and it always has been. And again, I just love your inspiration, and I love your creativity. So don't
Cheers,
stop.
man. That really means a lot. It really does. It's beautiful to hear that. You when you're creating stuff and throwing it out there, you kind of, especially when you're in your own little cocoon, you don't know where it lands or if it resonates with anyone. It's always the funny thing. Like you have to learn to not rely on that validation through a response. Because often you don't get a response, and you have to kind of just remind yourself that you do it because you love it, and you're not doing it for any return validation or admiration or anything.
Or likes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, with that, it always means the world when you do hear someone actually respond. So no, it means a lot to hear that, man. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I work off the mantra. And I've learnt this through being a teacher that you don't know who's observing and you don't know who's listening, and especially in what you do, where you're in the public space a little bit, you don't know. Like, you can't gauge the engagement through likes and comments. You really can't, because there's a lot of people who do engage or have a look, but don't say or do anything or don't act upon it. And they're usually the ones that are getting the most out of it, So I just keep that in the back of my head,
I think too. Sorry, keep going.
Well, in my opinion too, if you're connecting to someone if you're connecting to one person on a deep level, well, then your job's done.
Because, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the last 10 years is, 10 years ago, I was running around in Bali. I was still new here, and it was that sort of thing of, look, the more people you meet and the more people you know, the better you feel. And then after a while, you realize that doesn't mean anything really, because the more people you know, the less time you've got to spend with each one, and the less meaningful each relationship is. And as time goes on and the older you get, you realize that the more important connections are the ones that keep you satisfied and keep you feeling whole. And if you've only got a very small friendship group of people that you truly connect with, that is so much more valuable than being popular in a crowd where you don't know many people at all. And that's so reflective of the likes factor. People chase millions of likes, but if you've got a few people that enjoy what you're doing and connect with it and it means something to them, man, that should mean the world to you. And I guess that in anything you do, like absolutely anything, that should sort of be the primal thing to go for, is just that personal connection rather than a mass crowd of people that you pass through in an instant and then they forget about you and you forget about them.
Totally, bro. And I mean, going back to the like factor thing, I mean, let's face it, your exposure is dictated by an algorithm that you have no control over or really no idea how it works. So I just believe that if you stay true to what you're doing, and it'll find the people that need to hear it. It just will, and that's I work on that. I mean, sometimes for me, and like you, I mean, I can see and I can sense and I can feel your sense of conviction. I see it, I feel it, and like I'm not I'm not a creative, I'm not a musician. But I must admit, there's some days I look at the podcast downloads for certain episodes and I go, oh, man, why do I bother with this shit? It's so much work and rah, rah, rah. But I'm like, no, like I'm going to focus in on the few people that did listen to that episode and just keep going, because I'm doing it because I feel in my heart that that's what I have to do, and I'm listening to that. And once you take away this chase for numbers or likes or downloads, it's amazing how much more beautiful it gets.
Man, you couldn't be more spot on. Like, that is absolutely it. Really, it really is. I mean, it's these moments of true conversation between two people that, I mean, we weren't born to be living in a digital world. Like, our brains weren't created to know everyone on the earth. They just weren't. Like trying to do that just goes against the very fabric of nature of our organic brains and our and what creates us as loving, caring, connected human beings. So to try and know everyone and have everyone know you, it's just a pointless chase, isn't it?
Stress out.
You've got to stick to what makes you feel good, what you feel passionate and about, and that consistency is a really big part of it. I mean, it's all about just sticking with your story.
And that's what's always impressed me with you, is that your consistency. And again, and also your work ethic. I like I said, I've said it numerous times, but your consistency and your work ethic inspires me in kind of what I do, even though I don't consider it to be anywhere
man,
near
you're way more consistent than me. Oh, that cracks me up. But yeah, thanks, man. Fuck, that's cool.
No, but my production value is not as in depth as yours. So,
oh mate, you're pumping out an episode every week on the dot, dude.
Thank you.
Thank you. Get my shit together when I can and throw out a podcast, but
I know.
Yeah, man, it's
all
about.
I want you to stop doing that, because I don't want you to take listeners away from my podcast. All right. No, I'm just kidding. But listen, I don't want to cut you short. It's been epic, and I've got to go. It's my mum's 70th birthday, and I'm cooking a barbecue for her today. Can you
please give her a massive hug from me? Like, it's, if she remembers me, that'd be mind blowing, dude. Like, it's so out there. Oh, that's great. Just give her.
She does.
Yeah, give her a massive amount of love from me, and it's incredible, man, that we've got that connection from so long ago. Blows my mind.
Yeah, and she knows I'm recording with you today, so she'll be stoked to hear that.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Now, listen, man, like I said earlier, it's been a very unique podcast. We had a very long intro banter, which I'm putting in because I think we tapped into something quite deep. Okay. Like, she got real like straight away. But also, I've mentioned that you'll be getting a gift from our sponsors, and I've also
cool.
Yeah, we've talked about your album, but I ask all guests to come to the podcast with a cause they want to support or advocate for. So can you just hit me with something, or if you haven't got anything, I've got plenty.
No, I do. Let me just bring up, I don't want to get the name wrong. Let me just bring up the name on my phone here. Sorry, man. So there's a cause, Bali Hospitality Movement. So one of the last podcasts I did for the Bali Rooftop was with Halim, a DJ here, who's just amazing at getting involved in causes to help people out, basically. And it's a cause to help Bali operates on tourism industry. There's just thousands of people out of work who work within the hospitality industry who are just suffering, can't even feed their families. And so he helped set up a movement called the Bali Hospitality Movement, and through donations they basically put together food packages for people to eat and feed their families, which is just fantastic. So it's the Bali Hospitality Movement. If anyone wants to help out and donate, you will literally be putting food into the hands of people that need it and don't have the means to get it. So that'd be fantastic. Yeah, I'll definitely throw that one out as a movement I'd like to support.
Amazing, dude. And there's a link to that in this episode's show notes. So whatever platform you're listening to the podcast on, have a look in the show notes, scroll down. There'll also be links to our other affiliate sponsors, Wavekey by Brad Gerlach and Survival Apnea, and of course Indosol, and they'll direct you exactly where you need to go. And get on there and donate. And I mean, this is why I always have this segment in the show, like come with a cause, because I really do believe that people want to help when they can. And I just want to create more opportunities to be of service to the world, because I think sometimes people just get a little bit lost or confused as to where to start sometimes, but there's a vast amount out there. So here's just another option. So if Bali is close to your heart and you've been traveling there for years and going on numerous holidays and utilized the help of hospitality workers, get on there and let's keep the place afloat, because we're going to want to go back, and it's a beautiful island and that we both love. Hey, Athron.
Fuck yeah, man. That was great. Yeah. I'll back you up on that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well said.
Well, dude, listen, we're done, man, and I fucking love ya.
Awesome catching up with you, dude. Awesome.
Yes, man. And check out Athron's podcast. Hey, one more thing. This whole podcast journey for me, it's tricky. I'm learning so much. And someone was telling me, this marketing person was like, you've got to be on other people's podcasts, and then they're got to be on yours and stuff, and start promoting other people's podcasts. So I'm like, I don't want to promote other people's podcasts. I don't want to do that shit.
The battle of the podcasts.
But you're the one. You're the one, dude. That I'd love
I'm glad you chose me.
For. But you've got the niche. You've got the niche market. It's musicians that you're talking to. And again, the marketing person's like, oh, you got to get it. What's your niche? And I'm like, you know what? Fuck niches. My niche is anyone that likes to listen to podcasts and wants to, connect with people on a human level. There's my niche. If that's you're my niche.
But it comes back to that same thing. If you keep trying to chase something that you think other people want, you're not going to find it, man. You're doing what you feel driven and you're passionate about. You're just talking to people and getting their stories. Like, that's your niche. Fuck it. Just keep doing what you're doing, dude.
Thank you, dude. Let's end on that. I love you.
Rock and roll.